speaker is Ken Winston, who is with the Nebraska Sierra Club. And he's going to wrap it up by talking specifically about what's currently happening in the state to put some pressure on our state senators and Governor Heineman. And then we will open it up to questions because we have a lot from Twitter, Facebook, and email already. So.
Okay, thanks, Jane.
You're up, Ken.
Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've learned a lot tonight. So, I mean, I've got like 4 or 5 pages of notes from various things that people have said, and I've spent a lot of time studying this. So this has been a great opportunity to learn things. I represent the Nebraska Sierra Club. I'm the lobbyist for the Nebraska Sierra Club, which means I lobby mostly the Nebraska legislature. I do a little bit on the local level, depending upon if there's requests to work on various things. I guess one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, as Paul indicated, sometimes you will hear people say that there's nothing that the state or local people can do about this issue, that it's a federal issue, and that basically the federal government has preempted everything. And as Paul indicated, that's not the case. There are specific areas where the federal government has not gotten involved. One of them is deciding the route, and there are several states that have legislation in that area. As he indicated, there's also some issues related. We could pass legislation related to economics, and there's some issues related to zoning that states or local governments could get involved with. So right now, what we're doing is looking at what other states have done. There's a wealth of information. We haven't drawn any conclusions, but we're looking at things like routing the pipeline. And one of the things, as Ernie was indicating, what's going to happen to the pipeline when it's abandoned? Is there going to be any funding available to deal with the pipeline? What happens if there is a spill? Is there going to be a fund to deal with cleanup? Are we going to require any insurance? Are they going to have a requirement to have a bond? So we want to make sure that those things are covered. And we're going to work with state legislators, and obviously we're also interested in working with local government people and working with other organizations such as the Farmers Union. I see Graham's here tonight, that have also been involved in this issue, and contacting local officials and trying to get them involved in passing local regulations on the county level. So there's several senators who have done things in this area. Senator Dirks introduced a bill last session, which Ernie referred to, LB 755, and that bill was killed by the committee. Now there probably were some legal issues related to that. One of the reasons there was a legal issue is because it attempted to impose a fee on the the oil that would pass through the state. And that's something that's probably unconstitutional because it would be interfering with the Federal Commerce Clause. But there are a number of things, as I indicated and as Paul indicated, that we can do. And so the kinds of things that I was talking about are the kinds of things that we want to look at, which are things, like I said, routing the pipe, zoning it, finding appropriate funding to deal with economic damage. So who are some of the other senators who we're looking at? Well, I know there's several senators who are interested in the issue. There's also an interim study that's been introduced by Senator DuBois and Senator Sullivan. It's LR 435. And they're supposedly, well, I've talked to Senator DuBois. They're collecting information, and they're intending to provide a report and probably have some hearings this fall. So this is something where you should find out about that hearing. Oh, by the way, if you want to find out about things related to the legislature, you can also go to our website, the Sierra Club website, and that's sierranebraska.org. And I have a regular blog on there, which reminds me I need to update my blog. But in any event, we'll keep you posted about things like hearings that are coming up, in addition to the ones that Duane mentioned. So Senator DuBois and Senator Sullivan are both senators whose districts are crossed by the pipeline. Also Senator Fisher, Senator Karpyshek, and Senator Carlson, and I believe Senator Adams are the senators whose districts the pipeline crosses. But actually every senator should be interested in this issue. And so I would encourage you to call your local representative, your local state senator, and tell them that you want the legislature to get involved with this. Senator Ken Haar is another senator who's indicated an interest. One of the things that he wants to do, he believes there's many unanswered questions about the pipeline. He's in the process of asking some questions about that, trying to get more information about the pipeline. And I guess one of the things that I'd like to point out is the fact that there are many unanswered questions, and that was one of the things the EPA pointed out when they today said that the draft EIS was inadequate. So what kind of information do we need? Well, is there an emergency response plan? Do we know how they would respond if there was an emergency? And as Paul said, has anybody seen their emergency response plan? He indicated he hadn't seen it, and he's been working on this issue a lot longer than anybody else in the room, I bet. How long would it take them to respond if there was a leak? Do they have a leak detection system in place? Do they have insurance? Do they have financial reserves to recover the costs of remediating a damage? What's their track record? What would happen when the pipeline's abandoned? So a lot of these questions, they want to just say, well, this is going to be a good thing, and don't worry, and it's not going to leak. And as Ernie indicated, oh yes, it does leak. And there's a whole lot of areas where, yes, it does create problems, and we need answers to those questions. So where are we at in terms of the Sierra Club? Well, our bottom line, we don't want the pipeline. But if we do have a pipeline, then we need to make sure, if the pipeline does happen, we need to make sure that the questions that we have are answered and the kinds of safeguards that we need are in place so that Nebraskans are able to protect their interests and so the people of this country are able to protect their interests. And as Marty indicated, so that we're all standing together protecting everybody's interests. So once again, as other people have indicated, contact your U.S. senators, contact Senator Johans, contact Senator Nelson. If you're in this district, contact Congressman Fortenberry. If you're from Omaha, contact Congressman Lee Terry. Or if you're from the western part of the state, contact Adrian Smith. And contact your senator, your state senator. There are things we can do about this, and we need to make sure, well, as I said, our first preference is that the pipeline gets stopped, and that our next preference is if we're going to do it, let's make sure we do it right. And then finally, I do think that the fact that the EPA responded the way they did is in part a reflection of the kinds of comments that people made. And I believe there are over 100,000 comments, is that accurate? And I think that's an indication that citizen involvement can have an impact. So I would encourage you to stay involved and keep involved. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. We're going to go right into questions. I'll ask one from online, and then I'll ask one from the room. We'll kind of rotate that way. So the first one comes from Jacqueline. She sent it in via email, and she wants to know why is the pipeline being laid across the continent when the capacity to refine oil is available in Canada or in northern states? Paul, do you want to take that one?
Sure. The thing to remember about pipeline transportation systems and refining systems is that typically the cheapest way to get product or oil to markets is by shipping the crude oil as far as you can to refinery and have the refinery be as close as it can be to the markets. And that's because if you ship crude oil, you only have one pipeline. If you ship product out of a refinery, diesel fuel, gasoline, things called pentanes and other kinds of products, you need a separate pipeline typically for each of those products. So the number of pipelines coming out of a refinery is much larger than the number going in. So it's a lot cheaper to build one pipeline a long distance to a refinery and then have a bunch of smaller, shorter pipelines going out to the cities near that refinery. That's where refineries are mostly scattered around, except for the ones on the Gulf Coast. You see them around big cities typically, rather than out in the countryside. So, you know, the reason that they don't want to, the economics of why they don't refine in Canada are pretty complicated. But, you know, they would rather ship the crude oil down to the U.S. and have it refined there than refine it in Canada and have gasoline pipelines coming down and diesel pipelines and a whole bunch of different kinds of pipelines. Also, they've got a lot of sunk infrastructure in the United States. There's a lot of refineries here. They want to keep those refineries going for as long as possible, and making as much product as possible. And they don't want to build new refineries in Canada, then have to abandon refineries down in the U.S. I think those are some of the reasons. There are probably other ones too.
How about a question from the audience?
Where will the pipes be manufactured, and what will be the strength of that pipe?
That's a great question. I know Paul's organization just did a report on this, and so Paul, you want to answer that, and then maybe some other folks from the panel chime in?
Sure. We have a report. I put some things out. We don't have a copy for everybody in the room about the potential for a use of low-strength steel in the first Keystone pipeline. And just so you know, the steel for that pipe came from an Indian manufacturer. The steel, we're not sure where the steel came from. The steel comes from a different place than where it's made into a pipe. In terms of the Keystone XL pipeline, our understanding is that the same Indian company, Wellspun, is going to be producing at least some of the pipe for the Keystone XL pipeline, but we don't know where the steel for that pipe will be made. We haven't figured that out yet. We think that the public should know whether where the source of the steel for that pipeline is and where the pipe will be manufactured. Some countries don't have as high quality standards as other countries, and it turns out that our report shows pretty conclusively for the Keystone, or for other pipelines made in other parts of the country, that Wellspun provided a substantial amount of substandard pipe to other pipe manufacturers. We don't know if it did that for the Keystone pipeline or not. We asked for the federal government to investigate that and to report on whether where the steel for the Keystone XL, the Keystone 1 pipeline came from, and whether any of it's defective. So we don't really know yet, but that's one of the questions we have to ask is, well, where are you getting your, not only the pipe, but where's the steel coming from? Because you can take steel slabs and turn it into pipe anywhere, but the steel, one of the biggest problems with that weakness of the pipe that's been made in the past was that the steel chemistry was bad. This is very high strength pipe. This is very high tech pipe, and if the standards for this pipe are off by even small amounts, it can be substantially weaker than it's supposed to be. It's really very, very specialized, a manufacturing process, and you don't want sloppy steel mills making this pipe. It's making the steel for you.
This question comes from Twitter, and so Marty, I'll throw this one to you, and anybody else can kind of chime in as well. I do want to say that we do have Paul's Plains Justice report that he was just referring to on the Bold Nebraska resource page. Place. So Marty, how do they thin the heavy crude oil so it will flow through the pipe?
Oh,
So all of that information is kind of all in